I'm Sonya Lee.
And I'm Eric Thomas, and welcome to Cosmic Slop Radio. Today, Sonya and I have been talking about boundaries, and the boundaries in our personal, professional lives, the social boundaries that we have and we push and rearrange, even our geopolitical boundaries if you look at all the activity going on right now around the world.
Yeah.
The main thing is, what is a boundary? What exactly, how do you define a boundary? And we'll go from there. So Sonya?
Yeah, well, today is June 13th, and it's Friday the 13th, and there's a full moon, and this full moon is in Sagittarius, is about looking at ourselves and who we are in relation to the world. What is our liberty? What is our freedom? What is our limitations? What are our boundaries? And so in talking about all those things and sharing with him this book that I picked up that I'm reading on boundaries, it really brought home, how there's a lot of misunderstanding or limitation in even understanding what boundaries are. And so we thought, we might try and take a little crack at this and see if we can cover some of this, because obviously there's way too much to cover, in just a short segment. But what's your definition of boundary?
Well, I think at a basic level, a boundary helps you define. It's an extension of your self-worth, your view of your self-worth, and how you will or will not be treated by another person. What you'll allow into your energy, into your emotions, into your head, your heart, and what you won't.
Yeah.
So it's a very personal thing, but there's a common set of behaviors to them. I think the violation of integrity, the violation of another person's physicalness are clearly boundaries, but it's the mental, emotional ones.
Yeah.
It's the wants and desires and hurt.
Yeah. In this book, it talks about how a boundary is a limit that promotes integrity. And, that, as you were saying before, it's very individual for each person. And yet, we do have collective boundaries as well. And I'm not just talking about the map lines that are drawn between states or countries.
Or neighbors.
Or neighbors. What was it I said? Big fences make good neighbors? Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing that I found so interesting is the boundaries that we don't realize are boundaries and that we allow to kind of just slip through. The assumptions that people make on our behalf.
Or the projections.
We do them with our children all the time. Come in, your kid says, "I'm bored." "Oh, you're not bored. Go find something to do." Sorry.
Yeah.
It's an easy thing to say as a parent. I've said it many times, and yet still I'm violating this kid's boundary that he doesn't know his own mind, and the fact that he's bored or he's hungry or, he is in pain.
Or a boundary of
sad.
Understanding what your role is between each other.
Yeah.
And whether it's correctly understood at that moment or not is another thing. But
Sure.
the boundary of what we expect from our partners, our parents, our co-workers, our bosses.
Yeah. Our governments, our all of that comes into play. And the interesting synchronicity of this subject in conjunction with this full moon. Of course, it's always in perfect synchronicity, because the full moon in Sagittarius is asking us to look at ourselves and what we value and what our worth is. And that was another thing we talked about with boundaries, is that boundaries are also good, healthy boundaries are a indication of good self-worth. And when you value yourself and you have your own sense of self-worth, you're not as likely to allow people to, cross your boundaries or give away your boundaries. Because we do that as well when we think that, we can take it, it's not that big a deal, we don't care, I have big shoulders, I'm the one that everyone runs to. These are all just ways of us violating our own personal boundaries for acceptance, love, maybe because we just don't know what our boundaries are, and we were taught that we needed to be respectful and accommodating and accepting of others around us and not know our own mind and our own sense of value.
That's true, but we also live in a culture in the last 40 years, we have thrown away all the old boundaries of
Yeah,
things.
sure.
We have challenged them, we've correctly and rightly so changed some, and I think somewhat tragically changed some of them.
Yeah.
You know, we're in pretty ugly shape as a species and as a culture for sure. And it's been about the reshifting of boundaries between men and women, between employer and employees, between banks and creditors and consumers.
Sure.
All the ways that this comes into play. And we're in turmoil in a lot of them.
Yeah.
So it's about coming back to yourself, coming back to remembering, you know what, there is a lot of turmoil out there. What I need to understand about myself is my self-worth. And where will I define a boundary for all of these things?
Yeah. You know, a great exercise that you can try if you want to, get a better understanding of what we're sharing with you today is get yourself a piece of twine or string about 25 feet long and put it in a circle in the room and then stand in the center of that. And really think about what's inside that circle and what's outside that circle. What's within your personal boundary? What are your thoughts? What's in the boundaries of your thoughts? What's in the boundaries of your feelings? What's
Your heart.
outside of those boundaries? What do you love? What do you hate? What's on the floor that got kind of caught in the circle of, that you were creating?
And where have your boundaries become walls and isolated you from your life, isolated you from other people and the experiences of love and joy? Our boundaries are meant to protect us, but like anything misused, it can go too far, and all of a sudden it's shutting out people and events and places, even to ourselves.
Becomes our own personal prison.
Yeah.
So, if you are interested in more, that's something that you can try yourself at home, and perhaps it will, bring forth some questions, even more questions that you might want to discuss with someone. And that's what our coaching practice is about. That's what we strive to work with people is, everything that you need to know is within you.
But so's all the confusion and the hurt and the
right.
anger and the
So you've got to kind of dig through all of that to get to that nugget, that kernel, that pearl, if you will. And that's what we can help you to do. So, as you go through this week,
Think about your boundaries.
Think about your boundaries. Do you even have any? Do you even know what it means? Go Google it if you don't know what it means. And then, contact one of us and let's discuss it. Because the more you know, the better you'll be able to create healthy boundaries that will increase your quality of life. We know, we learned the hard way, that sometimes you had to forcefully take your boundaries back. And now we've learned that there's a much nicer, softer way of doing that is, there are still some people.
You got to define your boundaries. Some people
there are some
push
people,
them,
they do. But it becomes easier to do because like anything else, it's a practice. And the more that you do that, the easier it is for you to recognize when that integrity is not in place.
That's right. The more that you can work with your boundaries, you build your self-worth, the better you define your life. Like you said, the happiness, the clarity. Again, because I know I've taken the time to work to know I'm worth this behavior or this energy, and I know I'm worth not losing my energy in a boundary violation. When someone violates my boundary, I either want revenge or I'm hurt. And either way, it's a loss of my personal power, it's a loss of my emotional power, my spiritual power perhaps. All these things are in play. So give us a call and we'll talk about boundaries, we'll talk about our ability to enforce them, our inability to enforce them, and why we choose the boundaries we do.
And how they can make your life easier. Because when you understand what your boundaries are, you have no trouble saying no to the things that aren't within your boundaries. And then it's not about having to come up with some excuse or dodge somebody. It's just about being honest and authentic and staying in your integrity. And that is a really great space to be.
Yeah, because when you learn how to say no, you learn how to say a better yes.
That's right.
And when you say yes to better things, you choose better, it's just a better way to live. It's just simply a better way to live. All the other things aside and all the other things involved, being happy and content with yourself by not being violated and not being pushed and harassed is a key component to a healthy, peaceful life.
Yeah.
So when you're ready, give us a call. You'll see our web addresses at the bottom of the screen and maybe phone numbers at the end.
Yep. And
All right.
until next time, I'm Sonya Lee.
And I'm Eric Thomas. Be
Blessings.
well.